That afternoon, the sun shone brightly in the blue, cloudless sky. A gentle breeze blew, carrying the distinctive aroma of wet soil and yellowing rice. I walked slowly along the rice field embankment, enjoying the beautiful and calming scenery. In the distance, the gurgling sound of irrigation water flowed slowly, nourishing the expanse of fertile rice. As I walked further, my gaze fell on a farmer working in the rice field. Wearing a wide hat that protected him from the hot sun, his rough hands moved deftly, showing years of experience in farming. Every now and then, he wiped the sweat from his forehead, then continued his work with great diligence. I stood for a moment, watching how he patiently tended his rice field. Every movement seemed so meaningful, as if there was life that he entrusted to every grain of seed that he planted. Around him, several sparrows flew low, perhaps looking for the remains of scattered rice grains. Not far from where the farmer was working, there was a small hut on the edge of the rice field. There, a woman who was probably his wife sat resting while fanning herself with a dry coconut leaf. A small child ran around the hut, occasionally laughing happily while chasing butterflies that flew between the rice stalks. The scene was so simple, but it held a deep meaning about life. The farmers worked hard tirelessly, pinning their hopes on nature, waiting for the coming harvest season. I continued my steps and tried to approach him, bringing with me a sense of respect for the farmer who had struggled for life in this village. I really enjoy the fresh air blowing from the expanse of plants that stretch out. Now I am not far from him, I also chat with him. We are already close because he is my neighbor. With a wide hat that covers his face from the hot sun, he seems busy pulling out the stems of long beans that have started to dry. The plants, which used to be green and dense, are now no longer productive. Patiently he pulls out one by one the stems of long beans that have finished their harvest, then piles them in the corner of the field. However, he will not hoe or plow this field, because it can still be planted with new plants. He paused his work for a moment, wiping the sweat on his forehead with his sleeve that was already worn out by the soil. Yes, son, these long beans can no longer be harvested, so they have to be dismantled. The plan is, later I want to plant chilies, he answered with a friendly smile. I nodded, understanding how important crop rotation is for a farmer. Why did you choose chilies, sir? I asked again, interested in his choice. Taking a deep breath, then answered, the price is good on the market. If you take care of it properly, you can make a decent profit. But yeah, it's called farming, you have to be prepared for all possibilities. It's possible that the price will drop or pests will attack. I admire his passion. Farming is not an easy job. It takes perseverance, patience, and a little luck to get satisfactory results. Seeing how he works with passion, I increasingly realize that farmers are heroes who rarely get the spotlight. Each swing of his sickle produced a distinctive friction sound, creating a natural rhythm amidst the sound of the wind rustling through the leaves. The unproductive long bean stalks fell one by one, forming a pile in the corner of the field. Swiftly, he removed the remains of the plants, making sure nothing would interfere with the growth of the chilies he had just planted a few weeks ago. Occasionally, he paused, observing his young chili plants. Some of the leaves looked fresh, although some had wilted due to the heat. He crouched down, touching the soil around him, making sure the moisture was still sufficient to support growth. "It has to be watered often," he muttered softly, as if talking to himself. I, who had been observing him from the rice field embankment, was increasingly amazed by his meticulousness. For him, this field was not just a place to work, but also a source of life. Every plant he planted had great hopes in it. Hopes for a bountiful harvest, for a good price at the market, and for a more prosperous life. After all the remains of the long bean plants were cleaned, he stood up and let out a sigh of relief. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and then looked at his field with a satisfied look. Slowly, "These chilies will definitely grow well," he said confidently. I smiled. Today I learned one thing from that farmer: patience and perseverance are the keys to every endeavor, whatever its form. The afternoon was getting hotter, but he continued to work in his field with great diligence. After he had successfully cut down all the remaining long bean plants, he stood for a moment, looking at the expanse of land that was now more spacious. Unlike usual, this time he did not need many chili seeds to replace the plants that had been cleared. From the beginning, he had planted chilies by intercropping between the rows of long beans, so now some of his chili plants had started to grow. However, not all of the chili seeds survived, and he sighed softly when he saw some of his seedlings dying, their leaves dry and their stems wilted. The unpredictable weather changes in the last few weeks seemed to have a big impact. Sometimes it rained heavily, making the soil too wet. Then in a matter of days, the scorching heat returned and dried the soil quickly. He crouched down, touching the soil around the chili plants that were still standing. The soil was a little hard in some places, a sign that he needed to water them more often and give them extra attention. "That's farming," he muttered with a small smile, though there was a little worry in his heart. He knew that relying on nature meant being prepared for all possibilities. In the distance, the sound of sparrows could be heard chattering among the trees, as if they were silent witnesses to a farmer's struggle. Despite minor failures, he did not give up. For him, farming was about patience and trust, that every seed he planted would bear fruit if cared for wholeheartedly. After chatting for a while, I took my leave to continue my journey. From a distance, I still saw him working again, preparing his field for new plants. Under the scorching sun, he continued to struggle, placing his hopes on the chilies that would soon grow on his land.